never gon' risk, if you never gon' let me, I understand it's what you need. But it won't be my best if I ain't got nothing left. Baby, I can't lie, I got money on my mind. Baby, I can't lie, I got money on my mind. You love spending time, you ain't gotta spend the time. Long as we're in rhythm, you don't care about the run. When it's slow or flame, you want me to heat it up. Tyson in the rain, you want me to beat it up. How you like it, I know how you like it. Girl, I'm shining bright is, but only when I fire it up. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Do anything for the cash. Do anything for the cash. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Do anything for the cash. Do anything. I don't even know what I do to like. You ain't gotta tell me, baby, I know I'm your favorite. It's all fun and games, but I ain't the one to play with. No reason to worry what you worry about. All our little problems I'll be working out. Don't you let it put on a show, but I don't give you your affection. You be fussing and all, talking about why don't I give you something to talk about. As soon as you get my attention, you know it's going down. Oh. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Do anything for the cash. Do anything for the cash. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Flying in the mood, flying in my bag. Do anything for the cash. Do anything for the cash.
All right, folks, it's the guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business of Benefits. To my right, you will see the amazing Dr. Roshawnna Novellus.
Yes. Thank you so
Thanks for
much for
joining.
having me. Yeah.
Thanks for joining. So, how's your day been so far?
It's been fantastic. Wednesday, I'm mostly offline. I do my high frequency work, my creative work for my company every Wednesday. And then I allow like 3 meetings at most. So I'm feeling great, feeling good. I love Wednesdays.
Awesome. That's a great way to plan the week out then. Keep it,
Mm-hmm.
get the rest of the week, you have some energy.
Right.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to hashtag Team Live, hashtag Team Replay. Please let us know in the comments where you're live or in replay and where you are. And we're having an addition to this to kind of talk about capital. So I've loved Enricher. I've been on LinkedIn for a long time. I've seen you posting and all your different content with Enricher, and I love it for women empowerment because I think it's sad to say 2020 is the year of the woman, but I really think this has been a great year for women, and it should be going forward. It should have always been great.
Right.
But for people that haven't seen you for some reason, I don't know how they couldn't have, but if they haven't seen you, let them know who you are and why you know something about women businesses.
Awesome. So, as you mentioned, Dr. Roshawnna Novellus is CEO of Enricher. We help women-led businesses access capital for their companies, so between 50,000 and 250,000. And we also provide a digital community where like-minded women-led businesses can network with one another. Since we started, we've connected women with over $13 million to finance their companies. And our goal for 2020 is to increase this number to $50 million. So would love to have any of you join us on this movement.
I love it. So, and you're basically, well, candidly say, the technology person, the tech geek.
I am definitely a tech geek. I love when people say that. Oh, you're so nerdy. Yes, that's true.
So the marriage of technology and capital, what kind of led you down that path? Because it's usually you go one way or the other. So what led you down that path?
So interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. So my educational background, I have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering and finance, a master's degree in information systems engineering, and a doctorate degree in computer engineering and finance. So clearly I always liked both. But most of my initial work was on the engineering side. So I used to do situational awareness work. I love AI and machine learning. So I did so much research in that domain. And then later, when I started diving in deeper into risk management, I learned that advanced financial strategies that investment bankers use pair both finance and the engineering side. And I was like, well, I could do this to help people win. It shouldn't only be for those who know about this, that have huge pools of money. It should be for the everyday person as well. So in 2010, I decided to devote my skill sets to helping people leverage capitals to pursue their dreams. So at that point in time, I left the government consulting world in Washington, D.C., and moved to Atlanta and started figuring out the best way I could help others. So initially, I started off with helping the working poor. There are a lot of people who are homeless that still go to work every single day. So I would prepare taxes for them, help them qualify for benefits and the like. And I did that for about 2 years. Then I opened a tax and financial planning company, and I ran that for several years. And I started seeing time and time again that there was amazing business owners and they couldn't get any capital. They had the best idea. They had all kinds of wonderful experience. Like, I trust them, but they didn't know how to navigate this capital landscape. So I said, hey, I'm going to focus on this niche of the market and help as many people as possible win.
Awesome. And that's cool. Why do you think it is that the capital, I mean, obviously with the coronavirus going on, this whole PPP loan thing has been a big mess. Can't even say it. So why is it such an issue for businesses to get capital? Now we're in the past.
There are so many reasons. One reason is that a lot of times we're taught to fear money. So unfortunately, what a lot of people do when they feel like they can't pay their bills is put their head in the sand. They don't look at and figure out strategies. So one strategy that was available for a lot of people was to pause their mortgage payment. And this was for both corporate or commercial leases and for personal leases. So that's just one thing. So when I was then talking to business owners, I said, hey, have you been leveraging all of these opportunities that you have in your disposal to help your business sustain? And a lot of times, women, people of color feel bad or something if they leverage these programs. So that's one of the reasons. Like, we don't take full advantage of the programs that are available, or we start feeling bad when things aren't going our way and we decide to ignore finances. Another thing is just not keeping track of your cash flow and KPIs. Now, just like any other time, when you're running a business, you always need to know your KPIs. So a lot of companies had to restructure. They may have to downsize their staff or just focus on a smaller number of their products. And how you pick the product is the one with the best KPI. So that could be, the profit margin, the ease of getting it to the market. It could be whatever KPI that makes most sense for your business. But looking at your business from that analytic approach is something that a lot of people don't do. And that could just tell you what you should do, like simply without emotion. And then just reaching out for help. So because I have so many business owners that know me, I started calling some of the CEOs that I know, like, hey, did you apply for the PP? No, I didn't want to apply. Why? I said, why not? Well, XYZ. And I said, do you need the money though? Yes. And I said, well, why aren't you applying?
Yeah.
And I kept having to go through this over and over. And I got so many people to go through the process. But a lot of times when there's a sense of heightened uncertainty, we don't feel like it. We don't feel like processes. Yeah. We just don't feel like it. We just, want to opt out. But while it may be a good time to pause and change like the rigidity of your schedule, if there's a resource that can help you and your business win, you have to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the big issue, a lot of this COVID-19 stuff has hit the, Black and brown community very hard.
Yes.
And we always had a lack of access to capital. But what's the most recent information with PPP loans as far as how few of us are getting access to the capital right now?
It's pretty bad. So the last time I looked at the numbers, it was about, I think it was like 8 or 9%. It might have improved. But what they're finding is that if you had a traditional like corporation, S corp, and the like, and you kept on top of your finances, no problem.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of us, we don't do payroll. We have an LLC. We're self-employed. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, number one, self-employed people had to wait
Yeah.
for C corps and the like to do theirs first. And then a lot of banks either decided it wasn't worth their time or energy
Mm-hmm.
to process those applications. So they either just said, hey, we're not accepting any more applications, or for people who were submitting it, they felt like it wasn't worth them reviewing it because these financial institutions were paid 5% of the loan value. So 5% might be worth it for $100,000 loan, or of course a $4 million loan.
Right.
But a bank might say 10 grand, that's not even worth my time to look at it. So it's all about the incentives for the financial institutions. Do
Yeah.
you have your paperwork together? And both parties can decide who's worth it and who's not.
That's interesting to share that because that wasn't
Yep.
in the media that the banks got paid for it because my
Oh,
logic,
yeah.
it wasn't shared out there. So it's good to tell people that because I feel like a lot of it was these big banks were collecting applications. I felt like to say, well, the PPP one's gone, but we can give you 5% interest or some kind of a
Yeah.
workaround, and then kind of the hold you to, which is why I put the hold you captive. A lot of banks hold you captive when you ask for capital. So
Right.
how did you guys handle it? Did you handle it the kind of let's see what we can do for you kind of way, or how was the approach for Enricher to help people with that?
So our approach was just to ask people if they needed us to help them prepare their documents. A lot of people were kind of silent when we asked. As I told my whole community, hey, I used to own an accounting firm. I know how to do this on the back of my head. Like I
Right.
could do this just like this.
Mm-hmm.
But several CEOs, they asked me offline, hey, Roshawnna, can you help me do this and that? And 100% of them were funded. So 100% of everyone I helped. And
Awesome.
so it really, made me feel great that I have had this entrepreneurial experience that included, the background knowledge on like accounting, dealing with the IRS system, dealing with the EFTPS system. So I already knew how to do all of that so that
Mm-hmm.
I could, help people in a way that Enricher traditionally doesn't help people.
Perfect. And I know you're an
Yeah.
enrolled agent, so you know both sides
Yeah.
of the coin with the IRS and getting
Yeah.
money. And
Again, I'm a nerd. I love like financial legislation and like, yeah, I love all that stuff.
I almost went on that path. My original degree was computer engineering and mathematics,
Oh,
and
okay. So we're
I
like
switched
minded.
it. Yeah, I switched it to math and accounting, so I'm nerdy
Okay.
like you are.
Same. Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to capital, I feel like fintech is a booming thing that people don't know fintech. So when you think about getting capital, the most common way people know is to go to Wells Fargo, Bank of America, stuff like that. So what are all the kind of main accessible ways people can get capital in today's day and age?
Yeah, so the Bank of Americas and Wells Fargo's, those are the traditional financial institutions, and their target market are companies that are making $10 million plus. So
Mm-hmm.
just know that when you're walking into the door, you're not who they want if you're not in that area. So if you're not in that target area, you should think about going with a fintech and these are known as your digital platform. So we saw later in the game that companies such as PayPal jumped in, and Lindio and Fundera and all these other digital platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us are accustomed to using, Venmo and the like. So, or Vimeo, how am I saying it wrong? Venmo and the like, and to transfer payments. So we have this, and Cash App, right? So we have this relationships with some fintechs already, and we just don't know about it. So a lot of people were having trouble because they're used to how easy it is to use these apps on their phone, and then they were sent to CDFIs that don't have any electronic interface. And I'm like, what is this? This is like going back 20 years ago. And so everyone, or a lot of people, had firsthand experience about the huge difference in technology from, the fintechs to CDFIs or old school financial institutions to the experience with the larger institutions, just understanding really that, hey, I'm not your target customer. You don't really care about me as much as this other person. So
Mm-hmm.
this whole process, I think, helped people really understood like their place in the banking infrastructure of this country, and if they want to do something about that.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that there's a lot of these restaurants and smaller businesses are hurt bad by this. But I've actually seen some reports showing that there might be a surge of minority businesses after this. So, with your audience being women, what are some key issues you see women having with getting capital? Because I know that's your niche. So, what are the biggest issues you're seeing with them as far as getting access to capital?
So many things. So I already talked about the understanding of the financial reporting and feeling bad when things don't go our way. But there's a small subset of supporters that actually have money. So if
Mm,
you are seeking equity backed capital, so that's your VC or angel investment capital, most male led VC firms average about $100 million, asset under management. If you look up most women-led funds, you're looking at 5 to 10 million.
oh,
So how many women can you finance with 5 to 10 million versus men with 100 million?
yeah, that's a big
That's easy
difference.
math. And there's not only are the size of the capital base they can deploy much smaller, but there are a lot fewer of them. And
Mm,
so a lot of times we're set to compete with a whole bunch of people where all of us are well qualified. So, there's a lack of, access to people who are willing to, invest with us into our businesses with capital. And
mm,
for those that do have the capital, it's a lot smaller check sizes. So I read this research report a few years back that a lot of people are advocates for change for women and people of color, but they think that their theory of change is just to teach us,
ah,
continuously put us in more classes.
mm.
I don't know how many. I said, I have a PhD. I've done this and that. Like, I need some money. I know what I'm doing. I used to manage $50 million by the age of 25 when I was working in a consulting firm. Like,
Mm,
I know what I'm doing. I'm good with
right,
finance. I own an accounting firm. I know all this stuff. Let me have some money so I could do the thing. And
right.
so, time and time again, people were like, well, can you do another accelerator? Can you do another program? And then what was crazy, this one, I won't say any names, but this
Of
one
course.
program that I participated in, all the men were right out of college, 21, never had a job. All the women had an average age of 40, had 15 years plus work experience, all this
Mm,
stuff. And yet we're all selected for entry level accelerator. So to
makes no
me, it was
sense.
clear as day. Like, women have to have all this credentials, all this experience to qualify for what our counterparts automatically qualify just at 21. So,
That's sad to see that disparity and the big difference in the funding and also the training. So,
yeah.
um, I mean, I know overall there's a big financial problem in the United States. We don't teach finance in any capacity until you kind of get starting to a business,
Right.
even that when it starts, it's just sad. I was talking to one of the governor's employees about the reopening of Georgia, and
Mhm.
he had mentioned how several of them were just like, I got to choose between paying a power bill and feeding my family for my for the business because they just don't have their business in order. So, do you think a lot of your time they might come to you for capital, but you're teaching them kind of the foundation of a business before you get to that point?
Exactly. Every business owner should know their KPIs
Yeah.
and if their customers want what they're providing. And unfortunately, a lot of business owners don't in our communities, and
Mm,
they feel like it's a luxury to spend time figuring that out.
mm,
Where if they don't figure that out, they're gonna fail. And so, and we're hit, you know, harder because oftentimes we don't have as much in reserve as our counterparts.
mm,
Like, even for those who receive the stimulus check, I mean, if you owed taxes, I owed.
mm.
It took
Yeah,
months, right, to
I owe
receive
too.
your yeah. So for people who got a refund, your stimulus check was much quicker. So a lot of times the news stories don't include all these perspectives. So most business owners do owe,
Yep.
especially if they have any kind of business, whether it's a Schedule C, self-employed, or what have you. So most business owners' stimulus check was delayed. So,
Yeah.
and they have a lot more expenses.
Yeah.
So
If you don't owe, I think you're probably doing something wrong with your business, in my opinion.
yeah,
That's
right,
what I had to learn quick. Was like you need a W-2. I was like, refund's cool and all, but I want to, not get give the government a free loan for the past 12 months. So yeah, if you
right,
get a refund, this is my PSA. If you're a business owner, you get a tax refund, something's wrong. That shouldn't really
exactly.
happen.
So
But
this wasn't all like captured in a lot of the press and the media. Like
yeah,
it's essentially it's built for people who are in the know. So all of us who have this financial background, this accounting background, we just understood what was going on.
yeah,
And if that knowledge isn't accessible to you, you might have been left out of the conversation.
yeah. Well, one thing I want to talk about too, you had a newsletter I'm going to put up here that you started out
Yes.
recently, and I've not done a newsletter yet, but you've had amazing results within this. Definitely focused on women. So let's talk about the newsletter. Tell me how you started it and what the focus is for people that haven't seen it.
So my newsletter is called Secret Significant Success. And I started it 14 weeks ago, and we've hit about 7,000 subscribers on LinkedIn. And I've had 70,000 additional followers on my personal profile. So when I started the newsletter 14 weeks ago, I had 29,000 followers, and now I'm up to 109,000.
What?
And so this is all because of the newsletter. So within the newsletter, we discuss, secret conversations, whether they be with founders not knowing what to do or wanting to take a break, or interviews with others. We highlight amazing stories of women-led businesses. And then we also include resources and tools that can help women-led businesses grow. So I just published one earlier today. It has a podcast interview that I did about just my story. So that was in the conversation. It also had a detail of alternative financing techniques. So it spanned from revenue-based financing for your business, invoice factoring, debt-based financing to equity. So there's a whole conversation in there. And it's really important for you as a business owner to know what all of your options are. And then we also highlighted an amazing woman and her story. She has a technology that helps monitor police and communities. So we all know with all the news that there needs to be additional kind of technology embedded so that bad things don't happen to people who don't deserve bad things to happen to them. And so she has developed a whole tech platform to solve this problem. So that whole description's in our newsletter. And the whole goal is to provide a way for people to see themselves, the people to know that they have value, people to know that they have options, so that they can, do their thing.
I love it, and that's good. You're showcasing like real people.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I like the most about LinkedIn. You can find real, intelligent, smart professionals that you wouldn't have seen on TV probably,
Right.
but they know their craft.
Right.
So back to the capital piece, kind of with these options people have. It's I've noticed in the Black community especially, just talking money has always been a difficult thing for all of us, and I don't know where that comes from, but with the new normal for coronavirus right now, are you seeing a trend where it's harder to get capital for businesses that have been impacted negatively? Because I imagine some will watch this and say, hey, I want to go to Enricher and get some help, but my restaurant's been closed down for the past 3 months. So have you seen that kind of being an issue for people?
Exactly. So it's easiest to get money when you don't need money. So if you're in an industry that's seeing record demand, such as, protective equipment, or maybe you help with our virtual delivery of goods or service, or you help with the food supply chain, something like that. There's like 50 different industries I've written out the list that are like gangbusters. They can get capital all day. But if you're in maybe a traditional gym or a restaurant, the capital landscape has definitely changed for you. And so, it's time for a new plan. But there is still capital available for businesses. It just depends on what kind of business you have. And in addition, this might be a time to change your strategy. There have been so many organizations that have stood up emergency grant funds. And I definitely recommend all business owners to apply for them. So I have this strategy I do for Enricher, where every single week I spend 4 hours applying to as many opportunities as possible. So whether they be grants, whether it be, hey, you could pitch on this thing, whatever, because you never know where your opportunities will come from. And usually about 25% of the time I win whatever it is that I apply for. And so capital has been coming from a variety of different ways. So I implore you to just not feel like all is lost, but to think about, hey, are there some additional things I could do? And that may be to maybe spin off something that can get financing now. I know a lot of people started making face masks and that was not in their business
Right.
plan. Or it could be, hey, maybe it's a perfect time to launch your idea. So one of the women in our community, she was speaking with us pre-launch, and her idea was to have virtual babysitting. And
Okay.
before, this pandemic happened, she's like, almost everyone says nobody would ever use it. Like they can't even fathom how this would work. But lo and behold, she was able to launch her company about a month ago. In her first month, she made $50,000 in revenue because a lot of parents want someone to speak with their kids so they can have some time alone. And her business is going gangbusters. So she never did it a month before this pandemic, and it's right on time. So I just implore everyone to not feel like all is lost and just really think about what you can do with what you have.
That's interesting. 'Cause I never really even thought about virtual babysitting, honestly. Like when you said that, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But it makes sense on me because I have a 2-year-old at home, and if my wife wasn't here watching her, I don't know what would happen. So,
right.
So it definitely helps to have that extra set of hands to help with. Not had a set of hands, set of voices to kind of help with that.
Right.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, also, so as you're talking with getting capital, there's usually some, I wouldn't say tricks, but there's some things people should look out for, because part of the whole, PPP program, a lot of people said, hey, I don't want to do it and be on the hook for some big penalty or some kind of an issue. So for people that don't speak bank and don't speak legalese, what are some one or two red flags they should pay attention to when they're applying for capital to make sure they're not on the hook for something they didn't intend to?
Well, you should know all the terms. So if you don't feel comfortable reading it all yourselves, really get someone who you can trust to get that for you. So I saw it as an unprecedented opportunity. These loans had 1% interest, even if they weren't forgiven. When can you get a 1% loan? Ever.
Right.
So I was like, this is great for every business. This is the best. And to me, be on the hook for 1%, which is the cheapest that you could ever see for a loan, was more important than being on the hook for something. But you have to figure out where you stand. Do you believe in your business enough, or do your financial support growth to be able to pay this back or even be forgiven? Mind you, this was forgiven if you use 75% on the payroll costs. Can you spend 75% on your employees?
Right.
Just ask yourself these questions, and then you can relax on being the hook. But it's a good point. We have been taught that being on the hook should be avoided at all costs. And while there may be a little bit more credence to that in personal finance, I'm also about no credit card debt kind of person.
Yeah.
Every successful business has working capital, loan or that's just how it works. Because your business may be seasonal, you may be going through a period like this, your inventory might be delayed 2 months. It's just a part of doing business, right? So just understand that it's not the end of the world to have financial obligations. But before you take that financial obligation, you need to have a plan in your financial model to be able to pay that money back.
Okay. And then when they're looking at the actual, say the loan process, because I know early on, some people were charging fees to apply for the PPP. Now,
who was doing that?
Yeah, I won't say names, but now that you mentioned that whole 5% thing, the bank's already paying you, so why are you charging a fee? But people were doing that.
That's crazy. People or financial institutions?
True. No, this is people working as a loan officer or a capital, not like what you're doing with their small scale. I got my own firm. I'm trying to get funding for people.
I mean, some people will pay. I mean, I know people who pay people to help them. So yeah. And it's funny that it wasn't publicized because it was on the SBA page, but I read all the rules. Whatever I do, I'm like, what are the rules? And it's by law, they have to disclose a compensation agreement. So it was on the main website that banks were paid 5%. And if there was a special agent to help someone complete the application, you were supposed to be paid 1%. So, but what a lot of financial institutions did was block people from getting that 1% because that would cut out of their 5%. So they just didn't pay anybody to do it. So, because I did research all of that and contacted institutions directly. So So as you can see, like I'm a leader when it comes to finance, and I recommend everyone be a leader in their own life because
Yeah,
that's how you have the most opportunity, the most leverage for what's at your disposal.
that's crazy though. It's the blocking of it, but I guess money is money. They got to make their
Money
money
is
somehow.
money.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Well, kind of as you seem like you probably coach your businesses too. Do you end up coaching them kind of like, hey, like you mentioned the young lady with the virtual babysitting business. Do you find yourself kind of coaching a lot of businesses since you've been there, done that to help them sustain themselves?
yeah, so at Enricher, we have a online community called Enricher Society, and within that community, we have weekly coaching sessions. So they range a variety of topics from, customer acquisition to personal development to business financing to marketing. And within these sessions, that's where we help different entrepreneurs. Also, if people have special requests for me for one-on-one coaching, I do offer that, but I keep that small.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like when you mentioned earlier I should teach a LinkedIn class or something. I'm like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
kind of spread
yeah.
thin already.
I know, right?
But I want to be respectful of your time. So you've done a lot of amazing things, and I wanted you to touch on Techstars real quick. I know Enricher's your baby, and Techstars is definitely a big part of what you're doing as far as in the past. So just to give a little small plug for Techstars and what that's done for you, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Techstars is the number one accelerator community in the world. And so it actually changed my life because oftentimes people that look like me are not included in the Techstars network. It was the first time that I felt like I had access to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So how this accelerator program is different is that once you're selected, so I did the Techstars Anywhere program, which had 7,000 applications, and they picked 10. So I was one of the 10 out of 7,000 selected. After they selected us, they picked 30 strategic mentors based on what you needed as a company. Whereas a lot of programs just pick random amazing people, they picked specific amazing people that could help you win. So
Okay.
from those who scaled billion-dollar businesses to those that were, for me, CEOs of major women-focused magazines to organizations to those who had capital that they earmarked for women-led businesses. So
Mm-hmm.
this program really impressed upon me the value of a network, the value of giving first, because that's the motto of Techstars, give first,
Okay.
and the value of having, this 360-degree KPIs and feedback structure. So I still to this day communicate with everyone who was part of my Techstars program. We still meet, every other week to keep each other, abreast of what we're doing. We still help each other out. And it really transformed my view of entrepreneurship because a lot of times we think that we have to keep everything to ourselves. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just not the case.
I
So I
love that.
continue to be an advocate for them and help in any way that I can.
I bet it's important to talk about because I was talking with Jay Bailey about that with
Yeah.
the black community. Like it's kind of like you got your thing, I got my thing,
Yes.
and we don't want to share anything. So for women, I think this is especially important because I mean, obviously, when you get on LinkedIn, you see guys are guys, and they don't always respect and do the right thing, the messaging and stuff like that on LinkedIn. Versus women are all about working together. So as we close it, and not all the time, but most of the time they are, but talk about real quick just to help understand that for people that watch us on the replay or live, the power of networking that it's had for your business. I know you mentioned Techstar, but besides Techstar, how much
But
has networking helped you?
so Techstars really opened my mind to reconsider my networking reach. So even though I had this huge LinkedIn network, I didn't fully leverage it. I didn't.
Mm.
I just like, they're people, I'm not going to talk to them, whatever. But Techstars is like, hey, if you have someone who could do the thing, why would you do it from scratch? So one of the things that they asked us to do was to craft weekly updates. Within
Mm.
this weekly update, you would have a summary, and then you have a section called your asks. So I had asked from, hey, I wanted to meet like Sally Crockett, or I wanted you to do a demo of my tech platform, create an account and test it, or hey, can you promote my company or elevate this post? Every single thing I ever asked for, someone said yes. And I'm like,
Mm.
wait, is this how networking works? Like, I build relationships with someone. They believe in me. It's win-win. But then when I need help, they just do it and it's leveraged in this collective way. And so since I started doing that, the speed of my growth and success and ability to pivot has skyrocketed. So
Mm-hmm.
that is like the number one strategy that I think every business owner should use. So figure out who are your key people. So these can
Yeah.
be investors, stakeholders, even media contact. Like there's someone on my list who every time I'm doing something cool, she publishes in Forbes, right?
Okay.
So all these people with real world business experience who can come in, leverage their expertise with your idea so that you can go fast. And so
Mm-hmm.
I believe that everyone should leverage their network. But going to that last point that you mentioned, sometimes it's hard for me to network with men because I have this default like what do they want like thought whenever a man like reaches out to for anything. Like that's just how I
Yeah.
think. But
I
you
understand
know,
that because I've seen that when I ask guests to come on the show, sometimes they're like, "Hold up, what's
yeah,
up with this?"
I
Like,
do
I come in
research.
peace.
Yeah, when someone reaches out to me, I look at all their profile, look at their bio. Not that just because you had certain education, you're more or less okay, but I do this whole research to like assess if I should respond and what kind of response I should have.
Yeah.
And, do what you think is best. But I do have to say, you know, Black men are like my number one advocate. Most of my investment money has come from, Black men who've
Mm-hmm.
invested in Enrich Her. So most people assume that it's all women who've invested in my company. That hasn't been the case. So sometimes you have to expand your idea of who's going to support you,
Mm-hmm.
and figure out and, tell everybody your dreams, and then you'll figure out who will support you.
That brings a good comment up here. We got the screen comment showing up now. So,
Yes.
attorney, is it Quan? Quan
Yes.
Bridges? He says
Yes.
Dr. Novell starting a book club. So I guess
I
all this knowledge.
am. I
There you go.
am. So you follow my posts, and I've told most people I've gone through 25 books within the last 2 to 3 weeks. I was just listening to a book called Think Yourself Rich. So it's not Think and Grow Rich, it's Think Yourself Rich
Uh,
today. And I have a whole agenda scheduled, but look out for that starting in July. So it's on my calendar to start this book club, but in July.
Awesome. And then Michael Ballard had a comment too. He said, "Good tip: focus leveraging network with key people." Um,
Exactly.
I think people probably initially networking sounds like you're asking for you're begging. I think is what people think about. Is that when you network, you're begging. But honestly, I mean, me on LinkedIn, I've had a lot of great fun relationships, and there are people that are like minded. So at the end of the day, as a business owner, leader, professional, a lot of times you don't have people to talk to about the gripes of work and stuff like that. So networking can help you with that, just to get it out sometimes. But as
Right.
far as the women, so thank you for what you're doing for women. I think it's important just because it's been a long time coming. I have two daughters. I appreciate anything for women because it's been, the disparity has been very real. And I'm glad with everything going on, you can kind of find a way to help women with your technology background and your accounting background and finance background. For people that want to learn more about Enricher and what you're doing and get help with everything, how should they contact you and find you?
Yeah, so if you're on LinkedIn, you can definitely subscribe or connect with me there. Luckily, I'm the only person in the world with my name, Roshawnna Novellus, so I'm easy to find. If you want to come find us at Enrich Her, our website is enrichher.com, so enrichher.com, and we're at I Enrich Her on all social media platforms.
Awesome. How much time do you spend on the other platforms? I'm curious because all I use is LinkedIn.
So for a few years, I focused on Instagram until it was purchased by Facebook. So I grew my followers to about 54,000 when I was focused on that. And then since then, I haven't really figured it out. But I know that it's still a relevant platform. But because LinkedIn works in my favor, I'm highly biased towards LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it works in my favor. My target audience is on there. I could talk about, business all day, and that's cool. Whereas on some of the other platforms, that's not as
True. You're
that's
like,
not
okay,
the
we get
focus.
it. You know business, fine.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out how to, continue to grow my Instagram because it kind of stagnated at 50,000, which is still a lot, I know.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn, and I wanted to pair this back to the networking comment.
Mm-hmm.
So networking doesn't always have to be like, hey, I do this. What do you do? It doesn't have to be like that. I don't like that kind of communication exchange. But part of networking that I do is the newsletter, right? So people who read it, they get to kind of know me. They get to know what I'm about. They get to know like the kind of resources that I share to help others. And so it makes people feel like they have a more personal connection with me just by publishing that. And based on publishing this newsletter, I've gotten so many opportunities, from investors to being asked to be on movies to I can't even list all of the things.
Oh,
But
awesome.
because people have feel like they have a connection with you, like this, oh, we're on LinkedIn Live. This is networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because someone can find you more relatable, that's networking. And you have to interact with people after that, but it doesn't have to be some weird what do you do, what do I do kind of exchange.
Yeah. That's where the networking event, I think, perpetuated it. The guy handing his card out.
Yeah, I
Here's
don't
my
do
card.
that.
Here's my. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was never. I remember when I lived in Vegas, I tried that a couple of times, and it just wasn't.
it's not me.
It
I don't
didn't
even
feel
make
right.
cards. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you. I say check out my LinkedIn. Let's connect on LinkedIn. I haven't given out a card probably in 10 months now, probably.
Right.
So I'm with you. Well, Roshawnna, thank you so much for joining me on here. It's been fun. For those of you on replay or Team Live, share it with your people you know for women business owners that need access to capital, because Enricher is definitely the place to do that since they are focused on women. So I appreciate your time. Everybody be safe. Wash your hands, physical distance, all that good stuff, because we're still fighting
Yes.
this whole thing. And we'll catch you next time on Business of Benefits.